Welcome back to My Voice is a Weapon podcast. We're shifting into a different direction here. This is going to be funny, guys, for a few reasons. I want to talk about something that this is a conspiracy theory that I have in mind. Okay, this is my conspiracy theory. I don't know. Perhaps many of you know about the Joe Rogan against Carlos Mencia, aka Ned Holmess rift, right? That happened about 13 years ago. I think this was 2009 to between 2007 2009. In between those 2 years, that's when this whole thing started to unravel. There's a very famous clip on YouTube with the whole I'm gonna say this is a hoax. Okay, you're gonna understand why. So apparently this comedian Carlos Mencia, who has his real name is Ned Holmess. Apparently, he used Carlos Mencia as a name to apparently be liked by the Latin community. Right? So Joe Rogan accused him many years ago of stealing jokes. And here's I know a lot of you know about this, but one of the things that crossed my mind is, what if, right, this is all a hoax between the two of them to come up with something extremely... And now I know, after over 13 years since this happened, it's quite unlikely that they will actually wait this long to, build. But just hear me out, because it's very interesting. Now, the idea that they are actually friends, because we see that Mencia is he's kind of clueless. He doesn't really, it's not like he hates Rogan, because he can't, right? He's completely in the wrong here. On the other hand, Rogan, every time he talks about Mencia, every time the name Carlos Mencia is mentioned, his skin crawls. You can see the rage and the fury in Joe Rogan's body language, right? But now, I think he's just acting. And I think the truth is, none of this is real. It's just a hoax to make things more interesting, and because it's funny. It's funny. The idea that think about this. Why this is funny is because although there's nothing funny about thieves and somebody robbing you or stealing something from you, the funny part is this is comedy, all right, that we're talking about. There are no holds barred and no rules, apparently, in comedy. I don't know, maybe there are some rules. But there are comedians that have been accused of going too far, being, politically incorrect, and, being politically incorrect in terms, it can mean many things nowadays, because if you are a CJW, snowflakey kind of person, what that means is that person is using hate speech and it's a racist and all of that blah 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 cursory rhymes and all of this. Now, it's funny to me that all of a sudden, after so long, Carlos Mencia is all over the place now. He's on YouTube again. He's making media appearances. He's doing comedy shows again. He hasn't done any comedy shows in quite a while, since the whole Joe Rogan accusations. And basically, it's not just the accusations, because the accusations were there for years from many comedians, but Joe Rogan actually exposed him publicly, like nobody else. So what was I saying here? So for me, it's interesting that now Carlos Mencia is back, right? And he's been doing a tour trying to explain his side of the story, which is kind of weird because he kind of apologizes, but then take away the apology, saying, the same excuses that he has always used for years. Apologize there. But it's been... he comes back now doing all this media. And the funny thing is, when you think that maybe Joe Rogan is going to come out and try to expose him again, and Joe Rogan only gave a couple of statements about him, and that's it. He didn't really. That's why now I suspect this is a hoax, because I expected Rogan to go and be like, all right, this guy is showing up here again, and he continues to lie, he continues to steal jokes, and instead Rogan just went like, because normally when he had to talk about Mencia in other platforms outside of his podcast, in interviews and places and TV shows or whatever, he was always like saying, no, this motherfucker, I hate him because this, and this. He steals jokes. He's always taking time from other comedians and that type of shit that actually Mencia admitted to, right? He admitted plenty of times that he would stay on stage longer than what he was supposed to. And comedians that were beginning, new faces, got their opportunities kind of linked because of Mencia's actions. But it's not just that. Mencia did steal a lot of jokes. He did appropriate a lot of content from other people. And there are stories about him being backstage at comedy clubs and places where he would actually be observing everybody else and writing down stuff while everybody else was on stage. Now, it's not an officially a rule, but normally, if you're a comedian, you're not supposed to be writing shit while you're backstage. You write your stuff at home, or, you're not supposed to, because it becomes suspicious if there's somebody else on stage and you're starting to write stuff right there and then. And this comes because of it. It has happened. It's not just Mencia that does that, right? There's plenty of others that had stories about stealing jokes and, doing not very nice stuff behind the scenes. So, Rogan exposed this guy. He disappears because Rogan exposed him as a loser, as a complete shell of anything. the only talent he had was being funny with other people's material. That's what Joe Rogan told him to his face in that infamous clip on YouTube. Now, recently, Jogan just gave a couple of statements, and he was more, the attitude was different. He was more like, oh, this poor bastard is back again, and what are you gonna do? Look at him, look at where he is, and look at where I am. So you didn't see this anger and fury on Joe Rogan's expressions again. So for me, there's something going on there. And don't be surprised if sooner rather than later, Mencia shows up at the Joe Rogan Experience. That would be great, because I think we would finally see the culmination of the hoax between these two. Because if you think about it, that circle that they have is a very close circle. Everybody's connected to each other. You know that, for example, Bert Kreischer is very good friends with Bobby Lee, who used to be very good friends with Carlos Mencia. Bert Kreischer is very good friends with Joe Rogan. Now, I don't know exactly where the relationship between Bobby Lee and Joe Rogan stands, but going back to what I was saying, they are all connected to each other. They move in the same circles. So that's why I think we are getting closer and closer to a massive hoax created by this whole circle of comedians. And believe me, I think one day they're going to come up with a new show with all of them sitting down and doing something crazy for comedy, you know. So it's almost like this is the okay. I know it sounds like, because there's a lot of insane conspiracy theories about comedians, right? There's the I don't know what the case of Chris D'Elia is, but apparently there's something there as well. There's a few about Joey Diaz, but the problem with the conspiracy theories about Joey Diaz is that he's always coming out and either debunking them or saying that they're true, you know, because he's such an authentic guy that he's just, that's true. I did that type of shit. I was a bad motherfucker back in the day, you know, badass. That's Joey Diaz, you know. This the guy's a Cuban that lived his whole life. I think he lived most of his life in New Jersey, and then spent some time in New York, and then he was at some point all over the place between California and other places. But anyway, Joey Diaz is hilarious. And don't take me wrong, it's not like Carlos Mencia can be funny. The problem is he's funny. He's not capable of being funny with his own material, because he doesn't have any material. He's material, and he's always stealing from others. And I think, you know, if you're gonna go and be so here's why I think it's a hoax as well. You have to be completely retarded to actually go on a stage and steal jokes and not think that someday that's gonna caught up to you and people are gonna embarrass you. So that's why I don't really think that I think that the case is they said, okay, let's do something. Since I am not someone who's original and capable of creating my own stuff, let's create this surrounding where you actually embarrass me in front of everybody saying that I steal jokes. But in fact, what they're doing is they're allowing him to use their jokes so that he can come up on stage, use them, and then be exposed. That's what I think is going on here. And it's been going on, I know, for over 10 years. It's been between 10 and 13 years in the making, this whole thing. But now Mencia is back. He's been back in a few shows. I saw his participation at the Valuetainment podcast. And yeah, it's the things. Maybe he is an idiot, but I don't think he's completely retarded, because if he was completely retarded, maybe he wasn't going to even be funny, even telling those jokes, because the creativity wouldn't be there. And he has this creative side of being funny, even though those aren't his jokes. He knows how to be funny, so he has some sort of smartness in him. He's not a complete idiot, right? That's why I don't think this is real. I think this is a hoax. Now, granted, I might be completely wrong. He might be completely stupid, and he's just some guy that steals jokes and goes around saying that he never did that. And he's been exposed time and time again, not only by Rogan, but then other comedians came forward saying how he was stealing jokes and something else as well. He's always saying, okay, if I stole your joke, tell me which joke it is. I have all the jokes that I did recorded in tapes, and I know exactly where they are. So that's what he used as an argument to defend himself from. And he says that nobody ever caught him out on a specific joke. They just accused him of stealing jokes. Now, that's not true, because in that clip, you can see that Joe Rogan refers to a joke that Ari Shaffir did, and that then Carlos Mencia went on to steal it and used it in some other show. And then he's like, that's not true, that's not true. And and then he goes on to say that joke came from some other comedian that I can't remember the name of right now. But you see that how he doesn't make sense. And then, because it is true that he lies a lot. That's evident, right? He's constantly lying about this stuff. But he shows up there and says, well, in this podcast, and he's like kind of apologetic, but at the same time it's like kind of a farce, right? So he's saying that he never stole anything, that he was always being upfront with everybody, and he said, hey, if I stole your joke, I'm sorry, but please tell me what joke it is. And he says that they never said, they said, no, there's no problem here. And they never specified what joke, but we've seen time and time again that that's not true. Ari Shaffir said that he actually specified one joke that he stole, I think it was a joke about building a wall against immigrants or some sort, something like that. And Ari Shaffir was the first one to come up with that joke. what's even funnier is that a bunch of years later, Trump becomes president. And I think he's also stealing that from someone, because he actually wants to build a wall between Mexico and the US. And he's saying that the Mexicans are going to pay for it. You know? Man, that the whole thing smells like complete bullshit. Even Joe Rogan doesn't sound very real here. That's why, because his attitude changed, through the course of time. You can see how he's just like, because before you can see Rogan in many places. If the name Carlos Mencia is mentioned anywhere, he just gets angry, and he's immediately this fucking guy, and and he gets super angry and starts going off, and he really used to be like an advocate for to try to stop people from stealing jokes, because his argument is, now in the music industry, if there's lyric theft or songwriting theft of any sort, there's always, you go to court, there's a process behind it that protects the actual musician that wrote the material. In comedy, there's none of that, because comedians were never taken serious when it comes to the art that they make and how hard it is to actually create funny stuff. And all good and well with that, but come on, it's comedy. You can't take it seriously to that point. It's just comedy. Your whole art there is to make people laugh. Does it really matter if the joke is stolen? Because let's analyze this. Why does it matter? Because if I tell a joke in the street, because I'm not a comedian, the joke, I didn't invent that joke, but I'm telling it, and most often, I'm not going to say that I wrote the joke, but if nobody asks, I'm not going to tell them who told the joke to me. I'm just going to lay it as if I came up with the joke. Although, it's not my joke. I never claimed it's my joke. Because that's the thing with jokes. You hear jokes and you tell them. You just repeat them because they're funny, and you tell them to people that haven't heard them. That's the whole thing about jokes, right? So in comedy, when the whole joke theories started to float around, I just went, oh man, come on, seriously? It's fucking comedy, Everybody steals jokes, right? I'm not defending Mencia here, because I understand that it's one thing for us that are not comedians and are not on a stage performing to actually tell a joke that we heard somewhere to somebody else. That's fine. Now, I understand that in that circle, if you're actually working with some material and you go on a stage and you're going to present, and all of a sudden you say, oh, fuck, this guy is doing the joke that I wrote. How did he know that joke? Well, there it is. He probably stole it. So I understand that in that circle, you shouldn't be allowed to use other people's jokes unless you have an agreement. And there is some of this as well, right? Comedians have, they come up with agreements sometimes to allow other comedians to use one part of a joke that somebody else used, right? Also because it's sometimes the hardest part is, for example, maybe there are two comedians that are talking about the same subject, so they have to use their jokes in a completely different way. They have to no, not the jokes. Let's see if I phrase this right. What they do is they structure the joke around the subject in a completely different way so that you can't, accuse the other of actually stealing your joke. Because if you have two comedians using the same theme, right? The same, for example, let's say they're talking about racism, which is something that a lot of them use, right? A lot of them. Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, there's a lot of comedians that use racial jokes. Now, of course, they don't go out stealing from each other, but you can actually use a piece of a joke that was used by somebody else to put in context what your joke is. Now, that's something that they do a lot. Of course, you can use a little bit of a piece here and implement it in your joke. Now, that's completely okay. What you can't do is actually be backstage and everybody else that goes before you start writing. That's suspicious, right? And also, it's more suspicious if you're actually just trying to listen to the other jokes and going on the notebook, right? Writing down stuff. If you're actually with a closed door and trying to work on your material and you're concentrating on the other stuff and you're actually blocking out all the noise from the stage, then maybe, but even that way, if you're backstage, you're not there to write the material right there and there, right? And then, you're probably, if you're writing something there, you're probably trying to steal something. So most of them don't write backstage. That's an argument that I heard a lot, right? They don't start writing stuff backstage unless you're the first one on stage and then you come out and then you start writing for some other show. Then that's different, right? But it's not it's not a rule, but it's a custom for comedians not to be. It's not that they're not allowed, but you're not supposed to be writing jokes right after somebody else was on stage, or while somebody is on stage. So that's one thing, and there's the one thing that is funny to me is that this created a bunch of other shows talking about this situation, right? So that's why I think the whole circle. But you heard people on when Opie and Anthony was still on air, and you heard them refer to that case. Right? So, and I think that's I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing Anthony Cumia on the Joe Rogan Experience. I might be wrong. Maybe at the very beginning, he did show up on his podcast, but I don't think he did. On the other hand, when what's his name, Jim Norton did appear a couple of times on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and Jim is one that advocates a lot for that as well, joke theft. Although it's funny because he was someone who was actually accused of joke thievery as well on a couple of occasions. But in his defense, I think in his case he only stole one joke once, and it was kind of accidental. It's not like he stole it, But Carlos Mencia was someone that was constant, because it's okay, sometimes comedians do use jokes from other comedians accidentally, that's okay once, in a show here and there. But the Mencia cases, he was using jokes from other people all over the place. Everywhere he went, he used to come up with something from somebody else, right? So that's why he was so mercilessly attacked, by Rogan and Rogan's friends as well. A lot of Rogan's friends, most of them are comedians, right? So it's so that's it. I think this whole thing was a hoax. I truly believe that. And I think that one day we're gonna see all of this team of comedians come up and explain the whole thing for real, how they came up with this whole set. I might be wrong. Maybe this is a conspiracy theory on my part. But hey, it's funny to create this thought, because the whole situation is fucking funny. It's hilarious. So, I wouldn't blame anybody else to come up with some other theories on if this is a hoax or whatever, I think that in this case this is actually one of the healthiest cases where you can actually be free to conspire, because it's just comedy, it's supposed to make you laugh. So if you come up with a conspiracy theory about this stuff, is actually, it makes it even funnier in some cases, right? That the only problem that I see with this is, if you milk the cow for too long, at some point it will cease to be funny. So it won't be funny anymore. So in those cases, perhaps if this goes longer and longer, and because I know how this will work, Mencia will appear for a period of time in some places, and then he will disappear again, and maybe 5 years later he comes back, because I think that's the type of because he's gonna get hate mail for all of this, right? And when I mean hate mail, maybe mean tweets as well, or whatever. Social media is just, it can be a very cruel place. Places on the internet. But I don't know what you all think, but if you start to build it in your mind, and you think about all of how the whole thing was put in place, the fact that there's a clip with this guy publicly completely humiliated the way that he was by Rogan and company, I don't think that's the problem. When you see the interviews, he doesn't sound too stupid. He doesn't. Yeah, he lies a lot, but he doesn't sound like someone who is completely stupid that can't come up with anything. That's why it's like kind of suspicious to me. And also, how Rogan reacts. He used to react in a very angry way. He really got angry. There's another audio clip on YouTube, and I think it's Bill Burr I don't know who else. Maybe Jim Norton is also there, and Bill Burr. And then there's a couple of hosts from that show. Can't remember who they were. And Joe Rogan gets in the studio. And he says that somebody sent him an email about Mencia talking shit behind his back and saying that a bunch of crap I can't remember. But yeah, and he goes off on Mencia. He reads the email, right? And then he listens to the other show where Mencia is actually talking trash about him or whatever. And then he goes off on Mencia, and you can see the anger in his voice. He's actually like really angry, right? And he says he's a fucking thief and blah blah blah. But yeah, so the whole setup of this thing is way over exaggerated. And now Mencia disappeared. And back then I thought, okay, so this guy did this, now he's gone. So he's gone. No more. All of a sudden he comes back after 10 years. He comes back and he starts talking again. And it's weird because he comes back and with a completely different attitude. And you think that he's actually apologizing, but then if you listen to the whole shtick, he's actually just, trying to play people again. So, and then you see Rogan and he's like, instead of getting angry against this guy again, he's like, oh, this poor bastard. And maybe it's just Rogan, okay, I already humiliated the guy, Maybe he's just feeling pity for Mencia. And I wouldn't blame him, It's been a very long time, and maybe this conspiracy theory doesn't have anything to do with a hoax or anything. Maybe it's just me creating this in my head. But it's interesting, it's funny, and I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to do a little bit of more relaxed stuff here on the podcast, something else. And please, just like I said, this is my theory. Maybe I'm completely off. Maybe it's nothing to do with nothing. Maybe Carlos Mencia is just a thief, right? So, yeah. I don't know what else to implement here about this whole thing. What else can I talk about? Yeah, then I was listening. Oh man, this was so funny. There's a bunch of clips with Bill Burr and Bert Kreischer making each other laugh. It's just, oh my God. My stomach was in pain. I was laughing so hard. Holy shit. Just because of the amount of ridiculous shit that they can come up with, right? That's because anybody can be funny. I think that everybody has some sense of humor somewhere, but to be able to be that quick and witty with, your creative, being a comedian, it's all about being fast with the creation of something funny, and that's where I think most of us lack. That's what they have as a talent, right? They have that power of just being funny instantaneously, while most of us just can't, right? So, I had some stuff to say about Joey Diaz as well, but I think I forgot some stuff. But anyway, that's it. Wanted to do something just a little bit different, more relaxed, and I hope this was funny, because it is to me. It's hilarious, the fact that this guy came back, and oh Jesus, sorry, some noise here. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up for now, and we'll be back with more soon. So thank you all very much. See you next time. I was gonna say something else. Jesus. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much. See you next time. And get a good one.